No.
He's not Lamar. And we're going to bring DeQuell in here. And before we do that, DeQuell is our favorite drinker on the show. So we might as well sponsor his interview today by Cleveland Whiskey. If you need a special holiday present, pick up a bottle of Cleveland Whiskey's Christmas bourbon. It's available now at your local liquor store. Take some today. Whiskey without limits. Drink responsibly. And I think, guys, DeQuell's ready for battle. Check this out.
Yeah. Is he ready? Yeah, get him in there. Hey, DeQuell. DeQuell, have the Browns called you to play this week?
You know what? I had a couple missed calls from Ohio. I didn't call them back, but maybe they do need me, even with a torn Achilles right now. I think I'll be a better out.
I think with a torn Achilles, you'd still be better than what they got right now. I believe that.
Well, DeQuell, they value undersized linebackers right now, so I don't know.
Yeah, DeQuell's too big.
And you tackle way too well for these backers. They don't teach tackling. That's the thing. They put two-hand tap below the waist.
Don't do that.
Boom.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
The flag football action?
Yes.
DeQuell, how bad could this be? Just when you take a look at what their linebacking core is down to now, and the fact that Baltimore can and certainly will run the ball.
It's scary. I've never seen a situation like this before, ever. Listen, I'm sure every week and every day, you know how, former players, they realize on certain days they bring in guys, to do workouts. I'm sure that Berea is full of linebackers being working out right now because they're thin. They can't afford to have any more injuries, with that in the linebacker room. I've never seen anything like it. And even the guys who were playing, listen, they were barely holding on. As it is, they couldn't stop the run. So, I mean, this is going to be ugly. Baltimore ran the ball 38 times last week, including their quarterback. And I heard you guys talking about it. What's his name? Huntley or Anthony Brown threw the ball 5 times. Yeah. This is going to be, listen, they're coming in with a plan. I agree with Tyvis. Listen, they're not throwing the football. I wouldn't. Why would you? I would run at least 40 times on this this linebacker core because they can't stop anybody. Yeah. And why do anything else?
And the defensive middle is so weak.
By the way,
line.
Yeah, it's terrible. DeQuell.
It's atrocious.
When you look at the fact that Mike, you just put up. See if you can put up that graph again. You just put up about the leading tacklers on the Browns.
Gotcha.
We were talking before. We'll give you some hype while you're here. Actually, somebody asked the question before the show. Said, "Is DeQuell the best linebacker the Browns have had since '99?" And we said yes. So the only other guy we discussed was what's his name?
Demario Davis.
Demario Davis, but he only played here 1 year.
He wasn't good like that when he was there.
But when you were here, you led the Browns in tackles. I think every year you'd have like 1,000 tackles. The fact that the Browns' top 2 tacklers are safeties and not linebackers
is crazy.
And not even in the 80s after 13 games.
Right.
And they still can't tackle. The 2 tacklers is the
4 tacklers.
Can you show that graphic one more time, guys?
No, it show that graphic really is an indictment. Your leading tackler doesn't have 80 tackles and you played 13 games?
He's one away.
But wait a second. You're leading.
He needed one more.
Your top,
it's not there.
Your top linebacker is averaging about 5 tackles a game. Like, that's crazy. How bad is it?
It's a passing league.
Well,
so
but the Browns' run defense sucks, so people run on them.
Right.
How bad is it that safeties are leading the team? How bad is it that safeties are leading the team in tackles?
You know what? When I watch the film, it makes sense because a lot of times, JOK, for instance, I know I've been singling him out all year long. He is always out of phase, he's never in the frame. And that's partly because he plays so inconsistently. So it leaves a gash and hole for your safeties to come up and fix his mistakes. And all the guys collectively, the linebackers hadn't had a good year at all. But it's a shame. I would take that personally. If I were a linebacker on this team, I would take it personally that my safeties have more tackles than me, and I'm closer to the line. Well, it's a joke. It's truly a joke, man. And I watched the film last night again. I'm like, man, I just hate piling up on JOK. He's been playing terribly, and I don't want to pile up on. I know he's on IR right now, but like I had a coach tell me this a long time ago about how to prepare to be a pro in this league. And he always said, son, you had great instincts, but in order to be a perennial, have a career in this league, that instincts needs to meet preparedness. And a lot of times when I watch a lot of these linebackers that we have, it's almost as if there isn't instincts anymore. You're just making bad decisions. You're not prepared enough. You're not doing what you need to do when you leave the building in order to have pride in what you do, in order to be a better linebacker. It's very poor play all around. All around. And you know what? And that permeates to the back end. It puts a lot of pressure on your safeties and corners to be involved in the run game and to make those guys right.
Well, DeQuell, a very interesting point that a lot of people like to point out, because I'm with you on that one. How much of that falls on coaching? Because that's just where it's never the player, it's the coaches. So how much is that do you say is on the coaching?
When your guys are making the same mistakes week 1 as they're making week 13, that is not – I get it. The players you're going to play – but that's a lot of coach. That means, you know what, they're not listening. They're not buying into the coaching, and the coaching just isn't getting through to them. Because the coaches I've had, I could think of one off the top of my head, Billy Davis. This guy was probably one of the smartest coaches I've ever played for. And I was a guy, when he came in, I had my routine. I thought I knew everything, and he broke me down in terms of fundamentals, in terms of taking false steps or your read step. He drilled the hell out of me all season long, all off season, until I got it right. And you know what? It made my career take off. And just the little things, and I bought into it because he made it make sense for me. And for whatever reason, the coach isn't getting through to these guys, and it's showing up, and it's showing up badly. Because I see there's going to be a lot of changes coming this offseason.
We know it.
Particularly on that defensive staff, because, listen, it all boils down to the defensive coordinator, the position coaches, but the defensive coordinator is going to take the brunt of it because you're not getting through to these guys. And if your linebackers are inconsistently playing, and that's what you can rely on, that's signs of a bad defense, fellas.
What about the strength coach with all these injuries? Is his job in question? Because, when injuries happen, and it's a bunch of them, the first person they look at is the strength coach.
Yeah, you know the game. Yeah, if guys are getting injured, we're looking directly at you. And everything is compounded, right? Because, they're not playing well, and now your guys are getting hurt, guys aren't available, guys are in and out of the lineup. Absolutely, they take a hard look at what are you doing throughout the week. And again, a lot of it, I don't want to put it all on the strength coach, but a lot of it has to do with, as a defensive player, right? I knew we didn't have a great offense 9 times out of 10. And I had to buy hyperbaric chambers. I had to have every machine known to man at my house because I knew the level of play I wanted to consistently play at. But I knew because we didn't have a great offense, I was going to take a bulk of the defensive snaps. And, quite frankly, if you're a defense and you're not playing well, your team isn't having success, that means a lot more plays ends up on you. So you have to understand the situation of a season and prepare accordingly. But I think everyone on this staff is going to have to take a hard look, and whoever pulls that trigger in terms of who stays and who goes, I think no one is safe at this point. The only person I would say would be safe is Kevin Stefanski right now.
DeQuell, I don't know if this is a thing. I kind of look at it from watching the Browns over past years or whatever. I even watch the people that leave the Browns, go to other organizations, and they tighten up.
Hey, you got a haircut too, man. You look good, man. I just realized it. You got a haircut, man. I like that, man.
Fresh lines.
Shouldn't even told me that, dog. Shouldn't even say nothing. I appreciate you.
I had to acknowledge that.
He was like, that's crazy. Man, DeQuell, man, when I'm looking at these other teams, man, sometimes this happens when you got a losing organization where they come from other different teams and they know how it used to be, how it's run. But they get to Cleveland and they feel like, I can get that off. Like, it ain't that crazy. I mean, the first thing they say, we trying to turn it around. We understand what the city been through. Like, they look at it as a charity case. And it's like, well, we ain't doing exactly everything the right way, but, man, look at what we got, the injuries. I don't see nobody else talk about the level of injuries that other teams have. I go back and I just ask myself, how is it that the Jets can turn it around?
Right.
How did the Giants turn it around? How the Dolphins leapfrogged you? You were at the same place as the Bills a couple years ago drafting. The Bengals have now leapfrogged you and seem to be dramatically better. Why is it that when we ask for the patience, why is it that those other places are doing it in the same amount of time? Some of them got bad, terrible, indifferent, and then came back and been good. By the time you ain't even been good yet. How is it that they're doing that, and why can't we translate that?
Yeah, that's the crystal ball we all wish we had, man. I don't know what it is. I just don't know what it is. And you're right. When guys either leave Cleveland and go elsewhere, it seems as though their career takes off, whether it's coaches or players. And when they get here, you're right. For a long time when I was in the building,
Troy Hill.
The sense was you went to Cleveland because you had no other place to go coach, or either you were drafted there and you were trying to play your way out of Cleveland. You know, and it was a horrible stigma attached to this place, and you know it's going to continue to be that way unless someone comes in and really changes everything. And right now, listen, and again, I'm about to make an excuse. If all guys were healthy, you had quality coaches in the building, and all these different factors, there's no reason this team should be below water right now with the guys we have on the roster and the expectations attached to them before the season. And with all the, Deshaun Watson situation and, having a guy like Jacoby Brissett come in and play winning football and you take him out, it's so many different moving parts. So I feel like this year, in my opinion, is a mulligan for Kevin Stefanski, this whole organization. They've dealt with a lot of different moving parts. And, oh, by the way, now you add all these injuries on top of things. So if these guys can finish the season off and play inspiring football and motivate and continue to motivate this fan base, motivate people like us who watch them all day, every day, I think that's a step in the right direction.
All right.
By the way, real quick, just to follow up on something we said, Jay, before you jump in, I just wanted to look real quick to see who the leading tackler was for the Bengals, for the Steelers, and for the Ravens. Not that the Steelers have been any better. But all three of those teams, their leading tackler is a linebacker, and all three of those teams, linebacker that leads the team in tackles has at least 91 tackles.
Yeah. The numbers just don't match up.
And Bull, to your point, I realized I never answered your question earlier. There's another guy you guys forgot about, Carlos Dansby. He was coming from Arizona. I know he was on the tail end of his career, but when I left, Carlos Dansby came in as a linebacker, and him and I, we spoke often, and he's probably arguably you could end up in the Hall of Fame one day. So in terms of linebackers since '99, I got to put him up there for sure.
But his career, he was better in Arizona than here. Like he had the majority of his success. I think I'm going with you. I think in Cleveland.
Listen, I'll take it.
At least since I've been here, and I've been here since 2011. I don't even think it's close if their Cleveland career. But anyway.
Hey, DeQuell, so we talked about this in the show yesterday a lot. Jay had mentioned a conversation he had with Jimmy Donovan.
That's where I was going. Yeah, that's where I was
going. Great minds think alike, yeah. Well, then, Jay, you can ask the question. We're on the same page.
So, DeQuell, Jim Donovan was on our Channel 3 show with me on Monday, and he made a pretty definitive and emphatic statement that moving forward, it's pretty clear to him that this program, this organization has to draft smarter players. He didn't come out and say this is a dumb team. What he said was the Browns have tried to draft positionally by, prioritizing the groups that they think that you need to win. They've drafted speed. They've drafted this, that, and the other. But his bottom line, his takeaway statement was moving forward, this organization has to start thinking about drafting smarter players. As a guy who played the league at a cerebral level and a physical level and a high level, a player's football IQ from watching it over the period of time that you have, these 13 games. Characterize the football IQ of, and I'm not going to ask you to go on the offense because I know you're a defensive guy. The football IQ of this Browns defense is what letter grade? What are they when you watch them?
Listen, because to be honest with you, it's a D-.
Wow.
D-. And I say D-.
Why not a
D- because they'll flash it and walk in and make a play behind the line or something. Where Martin Emerson is the only reason why I don't give them an F.
Wow.
Because I think he's a rookie. Jim Donovan hit it on the head. He's exactly right. When you have all these athletes on this team, all the stuff on the paper, right? Like, athletic, can talk and run and do all these different things. He's absolutely right. When you watch this defense, it's not a smart defense. That is it. That is the nail on the head. It's not a smart defense.
The trouble with that is that we posed this question to Aditi also. And Aditi said, look, she knows the inner workings of this organization. She spent time inside behind the curtain. She spent time with Andrew Berry. She knows what he's trying to do here. She said that this football team prides itself and prioritizes taking intelligent players. That's like part of their building block. What is being lost in translation from the pre-draft interviews to them thinking they're getting smart guys to the product on the field where it's obvious? It's like watching the electronic football game where you turn on the buzzer and the parts are just vibrating all over the place. Everybody's going everywhere, wherever they want.
I think it's an area of players that is undervalued because we get so enamored with the Wonderlic test. I've been around a lot of guys, Jay, who are very smart in the classroom. You can hear what the teacher's telling you. You can answer the right questions. You can do all these things, prepare, take a ton of notes. You can be the best student ever. But football is different. When you're on that field, there's different elements that come to play. Crowd, whether you're healthy, guys running at you, being able to think on the at a moment's end. That is the difference maker. And how do you it's in my opinion, it's impossible to evaluate. But when you have guys, when you have a guy that's a cerebral guy, that he can take what he's learned from the classroom to the field and actually apply it and be a leader and line guys up, now he's a building block. I think they don't have enough of those building block pieces. Right. I think you have a ton of guys who are smart guys. Don't get me wrong.
Was Walker that guy and got hurt, and then the whole thing just was like a house of cards?
Walker was that guy, like I was in Indy and my time in Cleveland, where they were afraid. Listen, my skills had diminished. I couldn't cover some of these tight ends on my best days, but they knew they much rather deal with that as opposed to and deal with what I brought, and I can line guys up. And there was a level of comfort from all the guys on the field, whether it was a guy who was just filling in. They knew I could get him lined up. I was going to take care of him. I was going to meet with him later. It's a ton of different external intangible things that plays into it. Like some of my really good friends who played a very long time in this league, for instance, Mike Adams. When Mike Adams and I played together in Cleveland, he was one of those guys. He just couldn't snap it together on the field. But why? Because he didn't play much on defense. He played more special teams. But then it just clicked one year. And he became that guy that I could communicate with to communicate to the rest of the back end of the defense. And I'm sure Tyvis has dealt with this before. When you have a smart guy at every level, that's what you dream about having from a defense, from an offense. That's what you dream about. But this team here, you have so many for instance, with Jadeveon Clowney and some of the veteran guys are on the D line. That's the difference. You need guys from that linebacker.
It's so fascinating talking about the guy at each level, because I remember Tony Dungy when Tony was with the Bucs, and it was before his last season there, and he was talking about why he had a Super Bowl caliber, maybe even a Hall of Fame caliber defense, which it ended up that he did. Mm-hmm. And he said, you give me a Warren Sapp on the front with a football IQ that's off the chart and physical traits that he has. Mm-hmm. You give me a Derek Brooks in the middle with the football IQ he has and the physical traits that he has, and a John Lynch and even a Rondé Barber in the back end of that defense. Yep. He said, you will not see guys out of position on our football field on defense all year. And they didn't. And they were never out of position.
And Tyvis, this is crazy. I was going to ask you this question. It's just the regular, I don't know if these guys watch football, right? Like, I ain't played in years. But you go back to the football acumen and the smarts. when Tony Field runs into the kicker, right?
Man.
Let me ask you a question. Everybody know the block point is where?
1 to 2 yards in front of the dang punt.
Say it again.
It's
Everybody
1 to 2 yards
knows
in front of the where he's going to punch the ball.
And when you come
Are
at
you
it,
not blaming the coach now for that?
and when you come at it, what angle are you coming at?
When you come at it, you want to. If you're coming from the right side, it's a left hand out. If you're coming from the left, the right hand is out. You want to do it and go fly by. Because if you miss, you'll run right past the punter. You never ever take it straight down the middle, because if you miss, it's a roughing the punter and we back on the field no matter what.
Now, DeQuell, I'm sitting up here.
Game. That's where it did.
I'm just an out-of-work defensive lineman from the MAC. I don't know much. And Tyvis, he's doing, you know.
I'm a has-been.
Now, why do we know that? And yet and still, when Stefanski is asked, he said, well, he was trying. No, he was out of pocket. He didn't have proper technique, and he ran into the kicker because he didn't adhere to the block point. He didn't take the ball off the kicker's leg, and he didn't stay out there. We know this. It's just the fundamental stuff. I've never seen that.
Right. They just don't play smart situational football, and that's where all the games they've been in, and then down the stretch, they've lost it because of that reason, because it takes a very focused football team to finish games and not give up a touchdown right before the half that really, opens the game up. And because of that, it was because of running into the kicker. So here's the thing with Kevin Stefanski, which I think anytime you have this shows up more than it should for football teams. It's one thing to talk about it, but he isn't harping on it. When I played for Eric Mangini, that was not allowed. You hear me? If we did any of those things in practice, we had to run a lap around practice. Roam it like we were in high school. It was embarrassing.
Did it
work? You jumped off sides, if you did any. Hell yeah, it worked. Because I didn't want to run around the practice field 3 or 4 times, and I got to run back and get back. No, I don't want to do that. So he put an emphasis on it, and he really talked about situational football, and this team is lacking in terms of just being clued in situations like that.
DeQuell, when you see on the offense, right? Obviously they've been struggling. The offensive line has been a little banged up, and Deshaun Watson's kind of finding his way back. But the running game, it's easy to just blame the offensive line, and that's part of it. But what's interesting is Nick Chubb's yards after contact is way down. So that, to me, is less to do with the offensive line. Like, does he look – this is like the last couple of weeks, he just hasn't looked like himself. Am I wrong? Do you see it that way too?
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, listen, he runs the ball very physical.
Is he tired?
They rely on him. I mean, it's taking the toll. He is human. We have to remember, as great as he is, he's still human, and he takes hits. And he's had a lot to on his shoulders to carry this football team. And we all had the mindset, and we still do that. Hopefully Deshaun Watson can keep building on his progression from week 1 or for his first game to his third game to alleviate some pressure off of him. But, he's been great thus far, and I get it. It's a long season. He hasn't, been spectacular the last few weeks, and I get all of that. It's a long season, but I don't. That's one guy I don't worry about. But if Deshaun Watson can show a glimpse of magic and just look and have his timing down, from the first week he looked like he was unsure of himself, and he was he hasn't built that rapport with those guys in real time. So I think we'll see him evolve as from week to week, and hopefully he's able to use his legs and make some plays outside the pocket, and hopefully we'll see a running game pick up for sure.
That's the hope. I'm wondering if he's hit a wall. We've talked so much about the analytics of him getting 16 carries a game, and I'm just wondering if the Browns have, and that's why they've put it at 16, because they've recognized a pattern.
You guys owe apologies?
No, I'm not. I'm asking a question. That's not. I'm asking a question.
Get him, Bull.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Bull is Mr. Analytics, but I'm asking this question to the group because he's had a body of work now in the league where they know and they can look at his season in total, macro, and say, at the 200 carry mark, he's starting to break down. He's starting to not look like Nick Chubb. So we got to divide that by how many games. So when we get to 250 carries at the end of the season, Jay, and not in the middle of the season.
Jay, I hear what you're saying.
I'm just asking that.
But this Sunday, this past game,
yeah,
the reason Nick Chubb didn't look like Nick Chubb is because it was a guy by the name of DJ Reader that absolutely destroyed
he was
our offensive line. So there was no getting. But anytime he had
Bull
something,
brings up a good point. Bull's looking at yards after contact.
Yeah.
Well, he ain't have a chance to get off for the contact.
Yeah. Well, contact is contact, but and he's always been number 1 in the league at yards after contact.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if because his yak has gone down significantly, by the way, not just a little.
Last few weeks.
I'm just wondering. We've seen before where, and DeQuell, you can talk to this, and you can too, Ty. The season, it's always stretched out for these guys. In high school, they play, if they go all the way to the state tournament, they play 13 games. In college, if you go all the way to the end, you can play 15 or 16. Mm-hmm. In the NFL, now the regular season is 17 games. They keep moving the finish line. And I'm just wondering is,
by the way, it's going to be 18 soon.
It will be 18 soon.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that he is a machine in the weight room, everybody has a wall. Marathon runners talk about at the 21st mile, you hit the wall. Did you have a wall in the season, DeQuell? Where was it, and how much did it affect your performance from a percentage standpoint? And just round figures.
Don't go nowhere. I got something for you, too. Go ahead. I got a rebuttal. You go ahead and answer that question, DeQuell.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, it was always around like week 10. Week 10 is when week 10, week 11, week 12, that's where I kind of got into a lull. And, and with Cleveland, listen, you're not in the playoff. Well, yeah, they're out of it right now. I believe so.
They're out of it.
Not technically, but
they have a 0.4% chance of making the playoff. They're out of it.
There's still a chance. There's still a chance.
There's still a chance.
But it's hard to, on top of a grueling season, on top of, trying to self-motivate yourself to play. Yeah, it was every player hits a wall, whether it's your rookie year or your 10th year. I did it every year, and that's when you really have to go dig into that well and tap into, that reserve tank. Because, quite frankly, listen, I'll say with Nick Chubb, since Jacoby Brissett or Deshaun Watson has taken over, teams know, listen, this guy is going to be rusty. This guy is going to be the same. Where that point is in where he should be slowing down somewhat. So let's really pour it on this running game. Let's force Deshaun Watson to really have to make some throws. But every player hits it. I think he'll come out of it at some point. But I think it's realistic to say, you're right. After a certain amount of carries, year after year after year, it does take a toll for you. But for the most part, he's been above average in terms of yards after contact.
And I think Nick Chubb will bounce back and still have some good games. And to be fair to Nick Chubb, and to your point, Tyvis, like his yards after contact is down. But there's a difference between being contacted by a 230-pound linebacker or a safety and DJ Reader at 335. DJ Reader said basically after the game, like, Nick Chubb thought, because Nick Chubb throws a lot of players away. He was like, he ain't doing that to me. I mean,
he didn't.
That guy's got 100 pounds on him.
So I will say this, it's a lot been made about Nick Chubb, but we got to go to the stats. Maybe some of these names, dog, these names ain't really names when you just keep saying they top O-line. Let's keep it real, man. Jedrick Wills has a 58 grade, 58 on run block, 58.
For the year?
Is that 8, yes, sir.
Wow.
Jack Conklin, 53.
We shouldn't even be playing anymore. Shouldn't even be playing at this point.
I'm just saying.
The O-line hasn't produced yet.
Wyatt Teller, who we got high esteem for on this show, his grade is a 71.
That's fine.
And what's Joe Botelho?
That's not exceptional.
That's not great.
That's not bad.
What's
Botelho's not going to write home about that.
Joe Botelho's is at 83.
That's very good.
That's good. That's great. So my thing is, and we ain't going to go to Haagen-Dazs. Where you at?
No, we're not even going to go there.
Actually, Haagen-Dazs is a 67.
No kidding.
It's acceptable. The tackles are killing them. Tackles are killing them.
In my school at Ohio University, a 67 is a D. I'm confused how that's acceptable.
We've moved our bar.
We done moved.
Well, it's incredible. And we talk about the window in the NFL. It goes like this. And it doesn't stay here for very long. And we talk about that. And so my concern here is when they went out and gave up the farm to get Watson, it seemed like a smart play because we had the best offensive line, or one of them, in the NFL. In the blink of a year, now I know that we've had major issues at center, but in the blink of a year, we've gone from our offensive line being top 3 to what he just read. That window is open and closed, and my fear here is this team is aging out while Deshaun Watson is serving that suspension and trying to figure out how to play quarterback again.
I think they'll be fine.
Ethan Poaches gave you 84, 84.3.
It was a huge gamble. Huge gamble, and I tell you, if you can get those guys markedly better next season, this team would have. Listen, I'm confident these guys will be okay next year. But this year, however, it's
why are you confident that next year will be different?
Because I feel like all the guys that we have, and listen, I think as much as we talk about the failure of this team so far with all the hype going into it, I think they hear it, they feel it. They're competitors, and they want to get back to winning football. If they want to keep the structure they have, they like Kevin Stefanski. They want to make anything out of Deshaun Watson. That's still intriguing. I think, especially for the O-line, you got to take pride in that. And I think you've invested so much money on putting these guys together, and you've invested in Deshaun Watson, so you have to see it through. You can't start to unbuild this thing back right now, because now that means jobs are getting lost. But I do think with an offseason, this team will be markedly better next year.
And their offensive line, sorry to cut you off, DeQuell, their offensive line was playing well until the last month.
It just seems like the last month they've got old.
I don't know about that.
You just gave run grades only.
Here's the pass grades, because I knew you came with a rebuttal. Jedrick Wills, 68.6.
That's a D.
Wyatt Teller, 64.8.
That's an F.
Haagen-Dazs, 47.6.
That's an F.
Ethan Poaches, 67.5. Joe Bitonio is the highest on the squad with a 78.
Yeah, but
that's a C.
Yeah, but G, if you go through every offensive line in the league, you're gonna have some guys lower. Okay,
that's not great though, Bull. You know that.
Okay.
Well, we all know that the tackle position
here's
against
the bottom line.
is
Their
good.
guards are excellent. Teller's been banged up the second half of the year, which has lowered his grade. They've lost 3 centers. I mean, eventually it's going to – you can't have – who's got a good fourth-string center? Nobody. The tackle position's got to improve. James Hudson hopefully will improve right tackle.
That's optimistic. But what I'm saying by these grades is they wasn't bad.
But are you going to compare them to grades from other teams? You got to compare. You think every team has 5 guys with 80s? No.
That'll show a bit of a better truth. Who do we think has a really good offensive line? Let's see what their grades are. And compare.
I'll give you
the Eagles.
The Eagles have the best offense.
Hey, go ahead, McNuggets. Look that. But I will say this, by the way, too, McNuggets, or DeQuell, I don't think it's a good match for what they're running with Nick Chubb. Out of the shotgun read, Nick Chubb is a one-cut downhill back. Mm-hmm. They doing all this east and west stuff. That ain't it.
What is our
it's tough because they're running a different offense.
Right.
It's like this team had built some momentum with Jacoby Brissett with the play action pass and striking down the field, and he was able to make some throws. And now you're running a new offense, trying to slow walk Deshaun Watson back into the fold, where these guys are like, come on, let's go. So they're off kilter a bit, and it's going to take a few. Hopefully, we'll see a glimmer of what this offense could be at some point throughout the season.
DeQuell, what are the Browns the last 4 games?
That's what he is.
Who are their last 4 games?
They've got the Steelers to end the season. They've got the Ravens this week, and they got the Commanders
New Orleans,
and the Saints in between. So there it is on the screen right now. Bull says 3-1. I'm saying 2-2 is a win.
I see Washington.
Stop it, Kool-Aid.
4-0. Stop playing with me. 4-0.
No, I see them winning 2 games, and that's Washington. New Orleans and Pittsburgh. And I think Washington will be a toss-up.
I got them beating Baltimore, New Orleans, and Pittsburgh. I agree also. I think they're going to lose to Washington.
Y'all sleep. 4-0.
Are you serious? You really think they can go 4-0?
DeQuell.
I think it'll be Baltimore's got no quarterback.
You know why?
They run a lot,
why? Hold on. Can I tell?
And I need them to win.
Can I tell my story? Why are they going to win? They gonna win because they got some type of pride. All right, they going out.
They got no linebackers though.
Listen, that's fine.
You need linebackers over pride.
Listen, that means that people got to step up. You see Myles Garrett at defensive tackle, stand up D tackle.
Man,
it's a big
finally,
difference.
You guys
look, finally. He go, listen. They got 4 weeks.
17-0. Well,
you can't sell out for 4. You can't sell out for 4 weeks. You can get
They
all
haven't
the.
been able to sell out yet.
You get the shirt. You can rest. You can go to Cabo. You can get all that stuff. 4 weeks. You can't go hard for 4 weeks.
There's no prize
that's
at the
why
end of
we
it.
would have been great teammates. A lot of guys in that locker room, they're looking at, you know what, where am I going to go? What vacations? Their mind is somewhere else, and they're checking games.
It ain't going nowhere. It's gonna still be there in 4 weeks.
Right.
Like we can sell out for 4 weeks. Like, come on now, 4 weeks.
I agree.
We can go after 4 weeks. You can go do whatever you want to do. I don't care. You can go party, kick it, whatever. But for 4 weeks,
they're going to be able to do that
while
we
in
go
this
0-4
building
or 4-0.
They could.
I used to
They can go.
preach that
They got to be
all the
going against a team that ain't even got a quarterback this week.
We don't have linebackers.
Well, it's even.
Yeah.
Is it?
I'd rather be without. No offense to Quell, I'd rather be without linebackers than a quarterback.
I don't know. Not if you can run the ball. What are your passing grade or your offensive line numbers look like?
So I did some research according to PFF. This is all PFF grades. The Eagles have by far the highest rated offensive line, which makes sense.
What's their collective grade?
They don't have it graded out, but I'll show you how you see they're the number one when I
Yeah.
read you their 3 positions. Travis Kelce, the number 1 rated center in the
Not
league.
Travis Kelce.
Jason Kelce. Excuse me, Jason Kelce.
Jason Kelce.
90 flat.
That's incredible.
By the way, Pochich third.
Wow.
Pochich third in that.
Nice. Yeah.
So center, they're number 1 overall. Their 2 guards, Isaac Seumalo, S-E-U-M.
Yeah, you had it right.
Yeah.
M. Seumalo. He's a 5th overall, 75.
Okay. Where's Batonio?
2nd, 85. Their other guard drops, though, deep. Landon Dickerson, 27th with a 66. So they do drop. Teller, for the comparison, is 17th at 70.
And by the way, overall, their whole overall team grade for pass blocking is number 1, 81.3.
Yeah, but look at it. The only difference is going to be the tackles.
And here's the tackle.
And that's where the Browns have
here's
to
the
get
point.
better.
You ready?
Yeah.
Lane Johnson, 6th, 83.3. Their other tackle, Jordan Mailata, he's the giant dude out of Minnesota, the 6'9 guy. He's 18th at a 74. Both of those are higher than either Brown on this list.
Yeah.
So
Run blocking, their overall grade is a 76.5. The Browns' overall run grade is
guys,
71.8.
The Browns had a top 3 offensive line last year. It was top 3 considered going into the season. It was playing well early in the season for much of the year. Injuries and age with Conklin have caught up. They got to get better at right tackle. They're probably going to stick with Jedrick Wills. You don't need to have 5 great offense. Nobody has 5 great. Even
you don't want to slide Jared Wills to right tackle and bring.
I
him to
would.
left tackle?
I don't think he's a left tackle.
I would, but I don't think they're going to do that.
DeQuell, do you think he's a left tackle?
No.
Wills?
No, not at all.
He's a right tackle.
Not at all.
right?
He would be a above average right tackle.
The problem
for sure,
is left
if you can find
tackles
someone to replace him.
don't grow out of the soil. Like,
No.
where are you going to get a good left tackle? Not in the draft.
Second round.
That's the prop.
They don't usually slip to the second round.
By the way, for all the complaining about the draft, and I understand you'd like to have a first-round pick, the Browns have 5 picks in the first 4 rounds.
What's your first pick?
And they got multiple.
DeQuell, what's your second round
And they
pick
got
for the
multiple
Browns?
holes to fill, starting with defensive tackle.
Linebacker.
You go. So your first pick for the Browns.
No, I'm sorry. D tackle.
Okay, I was about to say.
Well, it depends. I mean, depends what the,
Well, the free agent market too has something to do with that.
Over a speedy receiver and a linebacker, you going D tackle?
I will tell you this, that and I wish Jason was here to talk about this, because the salary cap for the first time in years is going to be a big issue next year for this team.
It's like
They are
it's like
projected
15
$50
free
million
agents.
over the cap right now.
It's like 15 free agents that's not going to be.
yeah, there's
there
always
either.
ways around it, though.
That could be a topic
Not
for a
always.
good show. What
Yeah,
free
it could
agents
be a
will-
topic, right? Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be definitely a hot off season.
because we
Yeah,
can
we got
argue
a lot
that.
to burn in the offseason. Our hot
Yeah,
stove
yeah.
is going to be
I mean, because their overall defense is a 55, according to
The Browns?
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
55.
good. I'm surprised it's even that high, honestly. Thanks.
DeQuell, how you feeling before we let you go? How's the ankle?
Oh, feeling good. They allowed me last week to put some weight on it, so I'm actually getting around with and without the crutch. But for the most part, I'm on my knee scooter, man. I'm on my knee scooter, but I'm feeling good though.
Well,
Feeling
McNuggets
every
said
day.
if you don't challenge him in basketball before Christmas, then he takes the W because of the forfeit. I don't think that's
Man,
fair.
listen, we can
I
get
did
to the
not
free
say
throw
that, but
line.
I will accept that challenge.
We can get to the free throw line and we can have a shootout. Whatever we need to do.
I played terrible last night, DeQuell, so if you're going to get me, this is
Yeah,
getting
you're
good.
gonna look terrible when you playing me. All right.